waiting for it to catch up. Play catch up. My mouse wasn't reaching when it was in front of us, so I was trying to. Now it's playing games with me. Of course it is. Yeah. So because my mouse.
God give me different ideas I can add to it. I said, but when you're talking about a virtuous woman, there's only so many traits and characteristics in that I can add.
Right.
So I don't have that far to go to talk about the struggles and what she can encounter as a single mother and the things that she achieved and how God look at her life and as it progresses, how she become this virtuous woman. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Okay. I always love setting those up. That's funny. I love this thing. It works and then it says, just kidding. Not gonna do that. Okay, boom. Well, all right, y'all. Welcome to another episode. I don't even know what, we'll call it the Bible study. We'll go with the Bible study.
Yeah, always Bible study. The thing is, the way that I do the books that I write, it's still Bible study because it's teaching you. It doesn't matter the topic, and it can be a secular topic.
Yeah.
If it's important and it's affecting people's lives, it's part of God. I mean, so if once you put the Bible in it, it becomes Bible study. So, and I think a lot of our subjects, because we kind of got away from the book. If you remember, when we first started out, we was pulling chapters from the book to go in, and then we would talk about it and we go over it with the Bible. Yeah. So it's really all of it's the same to me. I don't separate it, especially like I say, when it's affecting people's lives and everybody has heartstrings. And I think the topic that we're getting ready to talk about is huge. It's been, like I said, it's been talked about for decades, and it has been something that really has a hold of men.
Yeah.
And, it's something that we really need to discuss. And we could have talked about it when we talked about men's mental health. We could have definitely put this up under that particular umbrella when we covered that. Which was a very good episode. So I think it's Bible study.
Yeah, well, hey, look, welcome to the Bible study. Look, I'm your host Quan. I go by Q. I'm joined by my co-host Minister Bogan, better known as MB. And you guys kind of probably got a glimpse to it. We're going to be talking about masculinity, but I think there's there's many facets in when you're looking into masculinity, and me and him were talking about it beforehand. And one of those things that that I had brought up was how society and how the culture of this world views masculinity, and some of the concerns behind it. And that is, I have my, when I was doing my homework, if you will, and getting into this, it was, I looked up incel, what an incel was. I looked up feminism, and I looked up toxic masculinity, because I think all of those three subcategories, I won't call them subcategories. Those three categories alone also speak to masculinity within itself, right? And having an understanding what each of them are is a big deal. For an example, like incel is an individual who it's a man. From my understanding, it's predominantly men. It can be women, but this is a predominantly a male. It's a men thing, or how the world defines it. It's only men. But an incel is an individual who refrains from having sex because they have their past experiences being denied by women, but because of that, they're upset with women, and their belief is because they were denied, women are the problem. So they're what is it called when you withstand from sex?
Celibacy.
They're forced themselves into celibacy, in a sense of, well, I'm in celibacy because women are the problem, and so I think that is what they were doing. It's a weird dynamic, to be honest with you, when you talk about incels, because they're very angry at women because they're not accepted by women, or the women that they don't want them. But I think that's a part of the process of, when you're out there trying to date people, that's a part of the process.
I'm looking at when you say that, and I think that is the premise for which that series in Netflix started, because 2 teenage girls throughout Europe got stabbed to death by young teenage men, adolescents, based on that view.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all my life when I was in high school or whatever, there's always this beautiful cheerleader that everybody want to date.
Yeah.
I got turned down and shut down so many times. I ain't never thought that. What really just blows me away, and it is not to speak ill of that mindset or the individuals that experience this. My biggest question is, and it's what the narrative said in that Netflix, how did we get here? When did it change from, so what if you don't, there's plenty of other women in the sea? That's how we looked at it. We would just say, she just wasn't for me. If I go to the club and I see this beautiful young woman, I know 9 times out of 10 I got a 50-50 chance. She might say, hey, you're not my cup of tea. No, I don't want to dance with you. Guess what I did? I get somebody else. And then normally when they saw me on the dance floor, then they want to dance with me, because they say he can dance, So everybody's, all eyes are on me, and I'm dancing with a young lady that is definitely not a 10. But, I'm having fun. The heck with her, Now all of a sudden, before the night is out, she want to dance with me. So then I have the choice of, well, do I want to dance with her? Usually I give in because she was fine. You know what I'm saying? But I never had this mindset. Here's my biggest problem with this whole thing. If this leads into the rest of the other 2 categories that also fall under this, is that how did we get here as men when we claim the victim?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the internet and the usage of the internet and what it turned into, right?
Spot on.
And so kids have access to the internet. They have access to all this information at their fingertips. But what ends up happening is we know this, there are wicked people out there. And what is the number one thing that has sold since the beginning of time? Sex. And so what do? They flood the market, if you will, with whether it's social media, whether it's YouTube, whatever it is, they flood it with just, oh, look, it's just a girl in a bikini. Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. Oh, look, there's just some nip slip there, or there's some things here. And so now, especially when you have an OnlyFans culture, which we talked about when we were discussing pornography, you have these men who have this false idea of what a woman is and how to treat a woman, right? When someone logs on to OnlyFans and they say, hey, I'm paying for Cat Special, whatever her name is, and she's doing all these things on her channel, if you will. Well, in your brain, especially if you're a young man and you've never been exposed to this stuff, or shouldn't be exposed to this stuff, but this is your first time being exposed to this stuff, your idea of what women should do and how they should act is now changed, it's altered. Even though if you come from a 2-parent household, you can see that how dad treats mom, if it's a good relationship, your now mind is saying, oh, well, this is what all women should do when they're in the bed. This is what all women should be capable of doing, or what they would want to do when they want to sleep with me. And they should all want to sleep with me because she's willingly doing all these things. And so I think that's a small aspect of it, but that's a start to it. And that's what leads to this idea of where we are now, they've turned women into objects.
Well, I would also say there was a class of young men that's been in this class of themselves, or they're on their own for decades. Even in my youth, I mean, they were known as nerds. Women, the final women went, or girls, if you will, talking high school, went for the jocks, the athletic jocks. Or if you played in a band and you was popular, they went with popularity. Nerds don't get any popularity. It doesn't mean that there's not a woman for them. But they just, they was gamers. They did their own thing. They didn't care. They were smart, and they know. They use their brain, and they say, you know what, I'm going to have the baddest woman in the world, because where there's money, there's women. You can have the most finest women. One of the comedians said that. So it was always that. But it was never to this point, and I agree with you that the internet played a big role. And I would add to that you have individuals out there that have their own narrative, that get people to join their cause by listening to this. They get radicalized by this particular ideology or belief, and they get stuck with that too. That's why I said this has gone on for decades, where some men just feel a certain way about women. And even when you have women that's very independent, and they're talking breaking glass ceilings and doing everything, that goes against the tradition. Well, it's even in the Bible. God says it's okay to get a job, but God ain't said nothing about competing with a man and usurping a man's authority, because he's still the head of the house. That ties into some of the problems you have why a lot of these women aren't married, because they have been either independents for so long, they don't know how to pull it back to let the man lead if they do find a man that's willing to give them a shot. So it's this masculinity, to go full circle. It's huge. It has so many different implications and ramifications, but I still didn't see it coming to this degree.
Well, I don't think a lot of us saw it coming, right? Because again, when the technology, cell phones and smartphones and all these things started becoming what they are today, there was still that the sense of naivety, if you will, of just like, I don't know what the potential of this is, but it's pretty cool that I can get on MySpace, and it's pretty cool I can message somebody and message my friends. And it was just it was innocent, right? It was a very innocent thing, and we understood, I would say a lot of us understood it to be used as a tool, not as a lifestyle. But now it's turned into a lifestyle, and where kids are addicted to their tablets, to their smartphones,
Not
to their
just
TV.
kids.
Well, adults as well.
I
I
can't go nowhere without my phone. If I lose my phone, I feel like I'm naked.
Right, and isn't that crazy? Because you think about it, and I'm gonna hint at your age here real quick, but think about it when you were in high school or in college age, right? You went somewhere. You just went somewhere, right? You didn't have a cell phone. I mean, you might have a pager or something, but but even then, if you have a pager, you still had to go to a phone, a street corner phone to make a phone call if someone needed to get a hold of you, whatever the case may be, right? But like, you just went there, you just went places, and it's like, hey, where's James at? He said he was going here. It's like, all right, well, I mean, if I drive there and he's not there, I don't know where he is. We got to figure it out.
It was a big difference, and that's why we spent time outdoors, where a lot of the kids are now gaming and spending time indoors because they're always on their smart devices. So yeah, it was a big difference then. We didn't have that, but due to the fact that these kids are so stuck on this technology, it affects the home. So even if you have a mom and dad at home, a lot of times the kids are upstairs, they downstairs, they're texting back and forth as opposed to having that family gathering or whatever. So the technology definitely has played a role. And one of the problems with technology is the fact that it is breaking up homes because kids spend so much time on it. And I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, people have lost their lives just wanting to take away that device from their kids, and they rebelled against their parents. So this is really, really bad.
Well, it's scary. I think it's scary, right? I think because again, how do you how do you kind to reel it back in to get to a point where it's like, hey, this is a tool, right? This is a tool where I can call, I can text if need be, or someone asked me, hey, when did World War II end again? Let me Google it, search whatever, right? Something, information or access to information. But again, when you have people out there who I do believe are wicked, who have bad intentions, they will, and it's a free market, if you an open market, if you will, they will try to work the system and gain to their gain and say, hey, why not? And so I'll take a step further. I'll even go a step further, kind of stepping away from technology for a second. But again, TV, and still in the sense is when you turn on the news, right? When kids turn on the news, or not kids turning on the news per se, but when you have adults who have on the news, and because kids used to go outside, right? We used to always be outside, but now kids are most of the time they're inside. Well, what I think in part happened here is there's a lot of fear that goes on. There was a lot of fear that was just like, hey, this happened in here. This happened over here. This happened here. All you start to hear is bad, 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 bad on the news. There's very few things where you hear good things like, hey, guys, look, this is a great thing, and this is that happened. Two cats were saved from a tree today, right? Feel good moment. But now it's a lot of negativity that is seen on there, where it's just all of it seems more negative, and where it creates this fear, this subconscious fear that parents don't let their kids go out. So, well, what if my kid gets taken? What if my kid does this? What if someone wants to do this? And don't get me wrong, those fears are justified in the sense of like these things could potentially happen, but you don't have kids going outside anymore where they as they used to.
I don't think, to be honest with you, that is what's stopping kids from going outside, because kids going to go to parties, kids going to do what they want to do. They're going to the malls, they're going to movies. So it's not that. I think it's more or less the fact that the evil that's in the world, active shooter events and all the things that is just, these are facts, things that wasn't going on when I was a kid, that's going on now. So that has a great deal impact on, if you have all these active shooter events, there is no safe place you can go. I mean, you can get shot up anywhere in America at any given time. There is no place that's safe. That's something they have to contend with. I was just thinking, when you talk about elementary school kids and you're stopping the bleeding, you're teaching them how to stop the bleeding, to do a chunking chest wound, how to feel that so that the person don't bleed. Why would a fifth grader need to learn that?
Yeah.
That's not something I had to tend with when I was in elementary school. So the world is an evil place. That's just, we've become evil. Morals is gone. So that's one of the implications or ramifications, or whatever the term is. That's what happens when you walk away from God. So when you ask the question, how do you reel that back? That's where God come in at, because a godly family will detach themselves from the world and will not allow social media, if you will, to run the household. But like you say, it's used as a tool. You're going to make sure you can get on it from time to time. Remember when my brother was raising my nephews, they gamers. They love to get on that doggone. They both went in the military, so they love those fighting games, sniper games, whatever. But he told them, you play this certain times of the day, you wait till the weekend, your homework comes first. We're going to do family. That's how he raised them. Yeah. And they were spot on point. I mean, they knew when Friday came, the weekend was theirs. They're on there playing all that stuff that was popular at the time.
Yeah.
So there is a way that it can be done where you can take advantage of the technology. It has to be taught. And that still falls on the man of the house to ensure that he is teaching the word of God, and that he is not letting any of that world creep in his house. Mm. That's what he has to do.
Well, yeah, I bring up going outside because I think it's one of the smallest things, one of the small things that's overlooked on how simple it is by letting the kids getting sunlight, getting the vitamin D, being out there running around, having fun with their friends, riding their bikes, and whatever the case might be, right? I think that's a big aspect of where you have a lot of kids who are inside predominantly. And that in being inside, what is it? They're like, well, I'm bored. My daughter comes inside. First thing she wants to do is turn on the TV. No, you don't need to turn on the TV. You can draw. You have these toys. You have all these toys that everyone has ever bought you over the last 6 going on 7 years. You can play with those toys. Use your imagination, right? We have gotten the sense of imagination is gone. When I was outside with my friends, we had to create these games that we could play that were fun because we had to be outside, and that required our imagination. Now, again, going back to technology, our imaginations are gone because now this phone or something is telling us this is what's fun, this is what you should do. right?
Totally agree.
And so, like, I think that's why going outside is a big, or it's a small component, but I think it's a big component at the same time, because parents, I live in a cul-de-sac. When we go outside, and my neighbors, a few neighbors who have kids, right? They'll let all their kids go outside. One of us or two of us will be out there, and the kids will be riding around having fun and be out there for like an hour or so plus, right? For me, that's like, this is where kids need to be. This is what they need to be doing, having fun, engaging in this, rather than seeing it when you pull into your neighborhood and you don't see any kids outside.
I totally agree. And that is how it was when I was growing up, because we didn't have anything to compete with it. You know, back in Atari days when we had that, and you look at stick figures and there wasn't no faces on them and all that stuff. But the thing that keeps them indoors is that tablet.
Yeah.
They'd rather play the games on the tablet. They'd rather play and see each other. They want to, all of this social media, they want to connect with their friends online. So that's what keeps kids indoors. Yeah. They don't have a desire to do, unless you buy bikes and you as a family go out and ride the bikes. That's what we used to do when I was married. We would ride the bikes together with the kids, and we go to parks and hikes and all of this stuff. So it's on the family still to ensure, like what you're doing. But for those families that don't have a quarter-sack, if those families that you live in a bad neighborhood, you don't want your kids outside, then you have to take them to a park. You have to get them outside some way. So the bottom line is, regardless of where you live or whatever means you have or safety nets you have around you, wherever there's a will, there is a way. You have to get those kids outdoors. But
no, go ahead.
We want to transition. Let me just read right quick what definitions I have of what, and you said you went over toxic masculinity. It says a set of attitudes and ways of behaving stereotypically associated with or expected of men, regarded as having a negative impact on men and a society as a whole. That was one of the things Google said.
I think it's funny, because I think that's it's too broad of a definition for something, because basically based off that definition, it's saying whatever someone perceives to be toxic and it's coming from a male can be considered toxic masculinity. And I think that is and that's part of my issue when it comes to the term toxic masculinity, and truthfully why I don't like it. Don't get me wrong, I think there are bad men out there, but I also think there are bad women out there as well. So it doesn't have to do with if it's a purely a male thing. I think there's bad people out there in general. And so toxic masculinity for me, and one of my core issues with it and how it's utilized is I don't like what you did, and I think the only reason you did it was because you're a male, so it's toxic masculinity.
Well, I think when it comes to the definition, it can vary depending on where you sit. It's almost like interpreting the Bible. It's the same. So I would say I believe that there's more than one definition to the term when looking at it from that perspective. I think toxic masculinity, it varies. I didn't agree with the second definition from masculinity, meaning it says qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of men or boys. As an example, handsome, muscled, and driven. He's a prime example of masculinity. So they're looking at it from a physical attribute, and the person being driven and saying that's masculine. Masculinity to me, it's a mindset of we look at masculinity, it's never been associated with a woman before in my day, because masculinity was always a man. When you saw someone that was masculine, they were well built like a tank, chiseled up, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you will. They had a mindset, they had integrity, they had character, but they were very driven, they were strong. That's considered masculine, as opposed to someone who's inferior and have an inferior complex. That's where we compared it back in the day. Now, like you say, I see women that are masculine, and I see women bodybuilders got bigger arms and shoulders than yours. I would never date them. They're too masculine for me. I don't like that. It's a turnoff. So I think the definition should change, because the world has changed, and what was considered masculine back then may still have it does have relevance today, but I would say it's much broader, and that goes back to what I just said. To reiterate, toxic masculinity as well as masculinity will be based on the individual and what they perceive it to be based on their own understanding and what they grew up with and who shaped that, unless the overall worldview has a definition of the term. I just went with, this is what I got off the internet.
No, I got you. Well, here's what I'll say. I will say that I think that when it comes to masculinity, our views have been changed again, going back. And I think technology has played a huge impact on our minds. And I'm going back to this because I'm going back to the movies. And I think of one of the movies, I think that anybody can agree with me that you would say that is an image of a masculine man, is Russell Crowe in Gladiator. That how he represented himself at the entire time went from being one of the top generals to then he was a slave fighting in the Colosseum. The entire time he did not waver on who he was and what he believed. Even as a slave, even when it was time to say, hey, you can lie, cheat, and steal, he didn't lie, cheat, and steal. He did the right thing under the beliefs of like, hey, this is what a man is supposed to represent. And so when you see that, you say, gosh, man, that's what a man looks like. That's what a man is supposed to do. He has values, and he holds strong to those values, no matter the situation that is around him.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think that we have a lot of heroes that have also lived a life of integrity, morals, and character. And I would say that Russell Crowe in that particular movie is one of my favorite movies. It is not the size of him that made him masculine. No. It was his inner being and who he was that stood out as masculine. And that's one of the things that I think is the wrong way to look at masculinity. Like, you got to be big and powerful, and you're just putting down those that are weaker than you, because that is also a form of masculinity, and that can fall under the toxic, because you're using your ability, whether you're financially using their money against other people, like an Elon Musk that's rich, if he threatened other people because he has the means to do so, that's being masculine in a sense. That can be somewhat toxic. But the true values of a man is based on the contents of his character and the size of his heart.
Yeah.
And there is nothing feminine, because masculinity is the opposite of femininity.
Yeah.
So any man, I'm masculine. I'm not huge physically, but when it comes to masculinity, I'm a man set on views and purpose and integrity, morals, and character. That is how God has called all of it. That's how God made us. And it never used to be an issue when it came to the man and the wife, because everybody understood their roles in the beginning, in the early days. It wasn't until, I can't blame it on the internet, because this has been going on. Well, I guess it's been going on for a longer period of time.
It has, but I think the internet, it almost brought it to the forefront, whereas before you saw predominantly what you were talking about, where the majority of people understood or knew their roles in their lives, right? And it was, hey, I'm married, and we got three or four kids, or whatever the case might be. The wife would say, hey, I want my husband out there working and making sure we can put food on the table and provide. And I love him for that. But what I provide for him is when he comes home, I may not be provide anything of monetary value, but what I do provide is he comes home, he has a home cooked meal. He's greeted by people that love him, and he's in a safe place when he comes home. And he knows that he trusts the people in this home, that they're not it's not the world out there trying to get him, and he can relax his shoulders, take a break, and just hang out with family and be happy with his family.
I think, unfortunately, with the way the world has degraded staying at home as a mom, as if that has no value, totally goes against the Bible. And it really just blows my mind how Christians can follow suit with that belief, for those that believe that that's okay, with shattering these glass windows and competing with a man, and can do anything a man can do. It was never meant to be a competition. And the true woman, she's very much valued, especially in the eyes of God, being that mother that sets home. Like Luther Vandross said, a house is not a home if you're not there.
Yeah.
Because what a woman brings to the house cannot be duplicated by another man playing mom.
100%.
You know, so I mean, I this stuff blows my mind. It's elementary. A lot of things we have to remember that the world is going to do what the world does, and that's sin. But when it comes to your house need to be in order according to the word of God and living a life that is different from that of the world.
Well, that for me is where I tie in feminism and the feminism movement. Now, the feminism movement in the beginning, the first wind, or I say wind, but the first true feminism movement had a purpose, and that's what it was, and they stuck to it. The feminist movement now has changed and it has altered to be I need to be an alpha female, just with the same principle, that same idea of an alpha male, right? I need to have a job, a high paying job. I need to be the boss. I need to, being the boss babe, or whatever the terminology that people will use today. This idea is I don't need a man to do anything for me. I can do it all by myself. Don't get me wrong. If you're in that situation where you have to do that, and you're a single mom, for example, hey, do what you need to do, handle your business, because you still need to provide you need to provide for somebody, right? Especially if you have a kid or kids. However, it's like you said in the beginning. When there is a man, if there is a man that ever appears for you, you need to be able to learn to say, hey, take a step back and say, hey, his role is to be the provider. His role is to do these things. I can go do those things if need be. And it will be. And if I enjoy working, I don't need to work full time, because I can rely on him. However, taking care of these kids is important as well. Being a home taker is important as well. And again, that has been completely been devalued, and it's turned into everyone should be working. Everyone should be competing with each other. Everyone should be fighting their way, crawling their way to the top to say, hey, I'm going to beat you. I make more money than you. I'm higher on the wealth status than you. I'm a CEO. I'm the lead pastor. I'm the insert title here. We've infatuated ourselves with these titles and these needs and the desire to want to be number one, and the taking away from the family dichotomy that we originally founded on. I am a sole believer, and I think you're the same case here. I'm a sole believer on 100% on the family. I think everything starts with the family. The family is the foundation for the growth for the kids, but especially for the mother and the father. As your kids get older and they start to become into themselves and reach that age where they're going out into the world, as scary as it is, as parents, your job was to build a foundation for them they can always rely on to say, boom, hey, when you hit your first brick wall, you have a foundation which you can always lean back on. And I always tell people that when we've talked about this before, that the foundation should be biblical. The foundation is God. It should come from God, and how the Bible outlines how we should live as men and women. Proverbs 22:6. It's a verse that I was reading today, and it's the one where it talks about. Hold on, I'll read it verbatim for you guys, so I'm not lying to you. Where'd it go? Proverbs. Hold on. I had it up here earlier, and there we go. And it goes, start children off, and this is NIV, start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. And when I read that, I read the Amplified version too, and I was like, okay, good, this is how I understand it. We are to give our children that foundational knowledge in which the Bible teaches, and so when they grow up and they reach that point, they won't turn from, hey, no, God's got my back. I'm walking into this with under God's protection and His will on my life. If His will on my life is for me to enter the United States military, I'm going to do that. If His will is on my life to go on and become a dentist, even though it's going to be hard and I don't know anything about it, I'm going to go do that. But we have to train our kids up in the way and how we're supposed to.
Well, I mean, it goes without saying, that's one of the chapters in the third book that's coming up, that family is the foundation of the world. That's the final frontier. Everything is pulled from it: government, community, church. And that's why God said, how can you manage my house if you can't rule yours? Mm-hmm. Every single thing. And it's not just the parents' responsibility to train them up in the way that they should go, that they won't part far from it in the house of as far as God is concerned. But you're training your kids every day for roles. Mm-hmm. You're teaching your son, hey, how to be a father, how to be a provider, how to do things around the house, how to open the door, how to pull the chair out for your sisters, so he can learn that now. That's what I used to do when I was married. I taught my son at the time how to pull a chair out for his sister because he saw me doing it for his mom. How to open the door. I had him to open the door to the car, open the door to the building. If it's raining, you drop them off in front of the store where you're going. You go park, you walk in the rain, but you take care of your queen. That's what I did the entire time before I got married and while I was married. Every single time I opened the door for my mom. I did that when I was a soldier. If you was a female soldier, I opened the door for you, not getting in my car, pulling on anything. And I had to halt them. I had to rebuke them because they were so used to being independent and doing it themselves. I'm like, what kind of standard are you setting? If you keep doing everything yourself, then what do you need a man for? Even something as small as opening the door yourself, you're programmed that way. And I just cringe because chivalry is dying simply because we're not teaching the next generation how it goes. Mm-hmm. So no, you teach more than just the word of God. You're teaching and pouring into them the daughters, how to be young ladies. Mm-hmm. That Proverbs, when the Bible says, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and that findeth a virtuous wife, a virtuous woman, to find that wife findeth a good thing in God, that her price is above rubies, that start in the home. Because when she get married, she's still being made. That's why I'm writing that in the book now. She is still being made to become that virtuous woman. It's a process, but it starts from the home. It starts way before, while they're kids, looking at what they see you do. Yep. So that you're not a hypocrite. So you said it was 3 different narratives. You covered toxic. You covered feminism.
And then and the incels, right?
And the incels.
But I think and I'll conclude with this, right? All 3 have a role in how we see ourselves as men and how the world perceives what masculinity is. And so it's one of those things where society will see it and determine that this is how you must see these things. This is how a man must be. Where, people will say, hey, if a man has, and this is my perception of what I have seen and what I have experienced. But if a man has values and he sticks to those values, well, that's toxic masculinity, because the men that someone else that people are used to dealing with, well, they can fold. They'll fold on their beliefs if when the rubber meets the road. You know what I mean? And so it's when you meet an individual like that, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, you're what I will perceive as toxic. Here's how I relate what masculinity looks like to the military. As NCOs, one of the things we're told to have is presence. When you walk in, and how I understand presence to be, when you walk into a room, everyone can see you, look at you, and be like, oh, I don't know what it is about this individual, but there's something about him or her that I know that I can't get away with the stuff that I used to get away with when I was Private Joe Snuffy, running around acting a fool, trying to get living in the E4 mafia. Oh, I got an appointment at 2:30. I guess I'm not going to come back for the rest of the day. See you guys later. You know what I mean? Like that is one of those things where I see that's how I relate to the military, is presence. So,
well, I mean, like I said, you're going to represent. Your light will shine brighter than you can ever imagine if you have integrity, morals, and character. And if the military has gone to presence, and that wasn't a term that was used in my day, but the bottom line is, if you're incompetent, it's going to shine that you're incompetent. Yep. If you're knowledgeable, you carry yourself, your uniform is squared away, you automatically get respect. It's demanded,
and that's part of the presence, right?
That's the presence. Like I say, that's why I'm saying it's still, no matter how it's worded, it's been in the military for decades. Yep. It changes with cultures, just like different buzzwords or slang, if you will, with different generations. All this stuff come and go. But the truth matter is, when you have integrity, you go back to Gladiator. Yep. You're going to get respect. They respect you based on how you conduct yourself in front of them. And when you show that you're concerned for their well-being and you're willing to get in the trenches with them, and not only that, but you're not incompetent, you know what you're doing, you know what's required, you know how to get things done effectively and efficiently, that's the respect you're going to get. And that is what's going to go around the unit. Man, I want to get in that guy's platoon. I want to get in that guy's company. That guy know what he's doing. I'll go to war with that guy. So that's in every aspect of life, not just the military. That happens whether you're a head custodian, whether you're a CEO. Everything matters with how you love and treat one another. Yeah. So with God, that's why you say people perish due to the lack of knowledge. You're incompetent.
Real quick, and I know you want to get to verses, but it makes me think of first will be last and last will be first, right? There's a scene in I love the movie Gladiator. I love that movie. I think it's so awesome. There's a scene in Gladiator when it finally comes out of who he is, and he walks back into the Coliseum where all the other gladiators are, or whatever. Right now, understand as a gladiator, right, you're gonna at one point you could be fighting that person, these people out in here for your survival. Everyone parts ways for him, and because they find out like, oh, this guy was a general in the legion, a Roman army. Not only he was just a random general. No. He worked for the Roman Empire himself, right? So he walks in, everyone parts their ways, and they're like, general, almost a sign of respect. And it gives me chills thinking that scene because, again, he didn't walk in there when he became slave. Hey, I'm a general of the Roman army. Hey, I'm a legionary. You can't do this to me. No. He said he walked in there and he was just like, this is what I must do. I fight and I know how to do that and I'm good at that. And when he finally told his name and they said who he was, immediately it was respect. He went down. He sat down to eat dinner for that night, and everyone waited for him to have his meal first. And one of the guys, he tried it for him. He's like, hey, make sure no one's trying to poison you. Immediately had respect. And this guy was still a gladiator. But that is to me, again, when I think of just kind of little things of what a man and what masculinity looks like, is that ability to say, hey, it's respect, it's love, and you stick to your principles no matter what.
You just broke down very well, I'd add, what every leader is supposed to look like.
Yep.
That's what the pastor is supposed to look like. That's what the president is supposed to look like. That's what the mayor, head custodian, anybody at Walmart, any manager at Burger King or anything, that is what they're supposed to look like. Respect is earned. And once you earn respect, you don't lose it unless you do something to lose it. So when you look at the respect they gave him, it was based on his resume.
Yep.
And I was talking about that before. Your resume speaks of who you are. And that's why, if I was the president, the first thing I'd do is we're all Americans. You're either a female based on your birth or you're a male. And you will put in your resume. I'm going to look at that, and that's how you get the job. I pick the people. That's it. But I don't want to hear no African or no Caucasian, no Chinese, Japanese. We all Americans, and you will be judged. You'll be judged by the contents of your character and by what your work ethic, your resume say. So that's how it's supposed to be. But I want to get to these scriptures, but it's only two scriptures from 1 Corinthians 16, 13 through 14 amplified. And it says, be on guard. Stand firm in your faith in God, respecting his precepts, which means a general rule intended to regulate behavior or thought, and keeping your doctrine sound. Act like mature men and be courageous. Be strong. 14 goes on to say, let everything you do be done in love, motivated and inspired by God's love for us. So I broke this down. Like I told you, I did it the way we did the other thing. So the first thing, say, be on guard. To be a good soldier and to protect and do what is right at all times, which is the opposite of bullying, which has no place in a Christian. So being on guard, being a good soldier, being that provider, being a good fighter, since we're using the gladiator, you're going to be good at what you do when you practice and hone your skills. You don't have to be good at this because God has made all men differently, and we all don't have the same strengths. But when you put God in it, God will help you to develop in that area. Let's say you're not good at being a provider. You're a hustler. You get out there and you'll get a job, but you struggle with just keeping a good job, but you got a family. So now you're trying that much harder. God will take your little bit and add to it, and he'll bless you with doors open so that you can get the job to be the provider you have a desire in your heart to be. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be able to fix everything in the house. You have to know that you need to call one of the Angie's list and get somebody else that know what they're doing before you blow the doggone building up. Yeah. You know, you don't need to flood it out. Now the basement's flooded and you got a swimming pool down in what should be the living room. So we have to understand, what I love about a real man is humility. We don't talk about that. I remember watching this karate movie where the fighter told his son that it is better for a man to shed blood than tears. And before the movie was over, he was shedding tears, the older guy. So that's not the way it looks. I mean, the military had us thinking that. That's why a lot of guys don't go and see people when they need help, because they see it as being not being masculine. They don't want to be seen as, well, you sick, you need to go see somebody. That was looked down upon back in the day, but now that's just the wrong way to look at it. It don't make sense for you to mess around and get an illness or die because you was too prideful to go and get help. That's not what masculinity is. Masculinity is humility as a Christian. God wanted to change our way of thinking when it came to this kind of stuff, because God's definition of a man and what the world say a man is two different things.
Well, I'll take a step further, and we can step away from gladiator. Let's look at King David. David danced, David sang, David cried, David did all of these things, but not at a single moment do I think that there was anybody that in David's kingdom said, "Hey, I'm gonna go test David and his gangster right now." No, there was not. There was that. Now, again, obviously, it outlines different stories that happened. His sons would not, but it's funny, right? David ran from his son. Right, his son tried to kill him. I know you know the story. He ran from his son, and I'm sure a lot of people would think that is weak. They'd be like, "Oh, you're running from your own son, aren't you? Aren't you the one who Saul killed thousands? You killed tens of thousands." And David was like, and it wasn't like David was like, "Yeah, I know, but I know where my strength comes from. Y'all think it's me, the man, that I get all these things from, and I'm strong and I'm capable of these." Understand? No. It's the one. It's the God of. It's God above who gave all this to me.
But let me show you something else that you might not have thought about. Just to add to what you just started. David, why would David want to kill his own son?
Yep.
A dad loves his son, even if they're evil, or a dad don't want to kill his own. What dad would want to take his own son's life, regardless of how puffed up he get and want to try dad out? I mean, kids tend to get past. They get grown and start smelling themselves, but no righteous man in this world would ever want to take his own son's life, regardless of what his son has done. Yep. So not only was it about God, but it's about, that's my son. I'll run from him to save his life. I don't want to lay these hands on him.
It's so funny because I was thinking, it made me think of it like, it's like, if we just read about what all the things that David had done before, right, and how mighty of a warrior he was considered, right, and then his son. Now, understand, David is dad's the teacher, right? He's the one who probably taught his son how to be the mighty warrior that he is now and considered now. And so, for the student to come after the teacher, like, "Hey, I know more than you. I'm sorry, son. You haven't fought as many battles. You have fought as many battles as I have." Right. And so anyway, that's just a little insert there, I thought it was kind of funny, but like I said, I don't think of all the things that we've heard David done, right? Again, crying, right? And on his knees and calling out to the Lord and all these things, where if you did today, most people would be like, "Oh, well, you're just a weak man." And be like, no, I'm sorry. No.
Well, it goes back to what we said about this masculinity. Everybody has their own idea of what a man is or what a man should be doing, and everybody got their opinion. But where the rubber meets the road is like the title of the books God blessed me to write. How did we get here? And what does God say about it? Because when it comes to your opinion, it does not matter. Mm-hmm. There's over 336 million people with opinions on earth in America. I could care less about all them darn opinions. That's just too many opinions for one to digest. Yeah. So I leave that to God, and I just tell you what God's saying. We just keep it moving.
Right. I like that.
So the other part of the scripture, stand firm in your faith, is to stand even when it hurts. Even when it hurts or could cause harm as a result. So when we stand firm in the face, that means you're willing to stand up when you know you're going to get blowback, you're going to get opposition, you can possibly have bodily harm, but you will not go the way of the coward. Gladiator. You will stand and fight no matter how big or bad the situation is, because that's what God expects of us. That's what God put in us, and that's what God asks of us as Christians. This here is part of a man, because a man is supposed to be able to do this so that you know, how many movies have you seen? Even in cartoons, you know, you have Tom and his little kid. The Tom get beat up by the mouse, and this kid put a bag on his face. Oh, the shame, you know. So this is, even though it's a cartoon, but there's something to glean from it. Because a son want to be able to look up to his dad. And you see in so many different sitcoms, so many different movies, how a son look at his dad and call him a coward. Because, wait a minute, Dad, I know right from wrong. You were supposed to stand up. Why didn't you go out there and do something? Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you help out? That's because that's what God put in us as men. There are certain attributes and traits that should be in you, and coward is not one of them.
Well, I love that example, because I think even it's in those moments where our sons or our daughters, even our kids will say, like, Dad, why didn't you do the thing in which I believe was you were supposed to do? Why didn't you go punch that man's lights out? Why didn't you defend us? But it's crazy is what you find out is Dad saw something that the kid didn't see. He didn't have the experience to see. But Dad saw it. Hey, that's a man who's hurting. So if me to respond to meet violence with violence, when a man who I can see is clearly hurting, that's not gonna help him. But if I can come at him with love, man, imagine how changed his life will be. With, like, I'm used to people just wanting to respond with you and be angry with me, but this man said, hey, look, I see you. You're okay. Appreciate it. Just to get away, take a few steps back from my family. Look, we're just trying to go grocery shopping. And it throws people off, not understanding that men understand. Again, for me, masculinity is having the ability to discern between moments when you have to be, where you need to defend yourself, and also say, no, there's something more here. This individual's hurt, this individual, whatever. But at the end of the day, all I need to do is love this individual.
That's a very good, astute observation. I totally agree with you. Make peace when possible with all men. So if you're slow to react, it gives you time to think. Like you say, a young kid will be hot-headed and you just go jump in and do the Buffy the Vampire beatdown. But then once they learn, then they're hurt because, but Dad, I didn't know, you know. But that's where wisdom come in at, and that's when you can sit them down and give them that lesson on that, and how they need to respond, but how they need to be a lot wider in their vision and broad in their perspective before they just go act off of what they was perceived. Not only kids. Listen, that behavior happens a lot with adults. We jump into situations that we really don't know what we're jumping into because we did not take the time to assess and count up the costs. And then when we get in it, we have regret because now, you know, it's costing us more than what we thought. The capital we didn't want to spend in this. And that's how the devil is. The devil invites you in and take way more than you can spend or what you thought. And now you see that once the paint wear off, once the glitter, you're like, this ain't gold. This is doggone lead. This is straight up garbage, you know, but you just spent $10,000 for that gold nugget. So, you know, you got a car. It was a lemon. You bought it off a friend trying to do a solid, want to be hanging with the fellas. So now you got a car that you can't spell and you can't afford to get the services on it because you want it to be low riding. You want it to be in the in crowd, and that's going to get the women. Look, we make a lot of mistakes because of sin. This here will teach you to act more responsibly, which is the next part. Act like mature men. Do not be petty or vain, but mature and seasoned, having knowledge and understanding of a matter before you speak. That's what I just got through saying.
Slow to speak, quick to listen.
Just got through saying that. We get it without knowing the full matter of anything. You shouldn't be so quick to jump in it, because what it may appear to you to be could wind up being, like you said, something totally different, where this person need love, but they're yelling at you. And one thing I would submit to you, if a person is acting outside of character and you actually know them and you see them acting all belligerent or getting all, you know, emotional and outburst and all this stuff, and that's not their normal character, that's a sign they need help. Instead of you trying to raise and meet them where they are in that perspective and you raising your voice, no, kind words turn away wrath. The first thing you want to do, if you're going to be a friend and show love, you should be concerned. If concern is not in you, God ain't in you. Look, this is just that simple. God is love. compassion. Everything Jesus did was showing love and compassion. God had compassion on them. He healed them. God did this. God did that based on love and compassion. If you don't have those attributes, then how can you say God is in you? Because he said, if you tell me you love me and you hate your brother, you're a liar and I'm not in you.
Yeah.
Because I'm love. God say, love your enemy, love your neighbor, love God. That's the two greatest commandments. So I'm like, what is your love if you can't show it?
Yeah.
Love is what love does. You can say you love a person all day long and on Sundays don't mean a darn thing. Be courageous, which means be brave and stand in the light of the Lord, not a coward. Be brave. There's times, like I said, you see somebody doing something you know is illegal or wrong. Now, if they're breaking in the store, you just leave that to the cops. They probably got surveillance. They're going to arrest the guy. But if you see somebody getting a beat down or you see somebody being raped and you're there, don't pull out your phone and start taking a selfie. Start recording it and stay silent. Oh, I'm not going to get into this. Because that's a coward. And you're complicit to whatever act is being taken. And my question to you is, what in the world will you tell God when he asks you about that event in your life, in your book of life? Because he's going to ask you, why didn't you do something? Why did you stand by like everybody else? And you're supposed to be of me, a peculiar person that stands out and stand up for people that can't stand up for themselves. We're supposed to take action. That's why God said, greater is no man that is willing to lay down his life for his friend. Sometimes it requires you to put yourself out there. Like I said before, and I tell y'all this, and I mean it when I tell you this, I'd rather get a beat down where I join Q in a fight than to let Q take on 3 people and he lose his life and I stood there because I was too afraid to act. That cowardice will be with me for the rest of my life. Where if I get in there and I mess around and punch somebody in their eye, that joker gonna have to grab that eye with one hand. That's one hand out the fight. So now me and Q have a better chance of tearing their behinds up. But I'd rather go to the hospital where I have a bed right next to him and we both broke and we live and talk about it than to watch him lose his life and I was too cowardice to do anything about it. I can't face God. I can't face my kids. I can't face my wife because a man is supposed to be a provider, a protector, someone that will do the right thing when the right thing is required. That's why you never say what you won't do when you have to be courageous at times because we don't know what scenario God gonna put us in where it's fight or flight. What are you going to do? You got split seconds to go in a burning building to try to save somebody's life or to try to rescue somebody that just jumped in the water and starting to drown. Either you're going to jump in and save them or both of y'all are going to go down. But at least I can't stand and watch somebody die and I do nothing.
I mean, we in this culture today, we see a lot of it where people will watch. They want to be, they'll pull their phones out and they'll watch. And it's like, hey, there's a person right now that you can clearly see, and whatever video this is, it's like there's a person hurting. Why isn't no one doing anything? A car accident happens, and people are recording it, and it's just like, hey, you just saw an accident happen, and there's not a single person running over there to make sure anybody's okay, trying to make sure there's no kids in there, nothing. And again, for me, this goes, and I go back to what I believe, but being part of a man looks like is you seeing something happening and saying, hey, look, I don't know what's going on. A car accident just occurred. Hey, if I don't see the movement, hey, I need to run over there. I need to figure out what's going on. Wanting to help, we'll make sure I can provide aid, help these people because maybe they're passed out, they're unconscious, but they need help. Someone needs help, and we should be able to go in there and want to help them.
Well, you know what? Back in my youth, that's how it was. Yep. People would run to help. It didn't take 9/11 for people to run toward the building to try to save as many lives. Mm-hmm. It's just that was the heart of people then. What has changed now? We're not morally sound anymore.
No,
our hearts have become cold, and it's like stone. Where you can see somebody in need. It's like the Good Samaritan, where everybody passed by but the Good Samaritan that saw the need and fit and met the need. That's why God gave that verse, because he knew this is what we would become.
Yep.
And God is saying, don't do this. Be the Good Samaritan. Go out of your way. So I only had 2 more parts of the scripture, then I'll be done. Be strong. This is not physical strength, but mental and spiritual based on the size of your heart. Your heart dictates a lot of different things. When you have love in your heart, you're automatically going to do something. You will not watch a person choke somebody to death and they lose their life. You'll say, hey, stop. That's enough. He's no longer a threat. Somebody would speak up. Somebody would say something. It's always somebody where there's, like God said, he has a ram in the bush. There's always somebody that should have the gall to stand up for what is right. How are we going to be soldiers? And we know that we're at war with the enemy, which is the devil, and that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but spirits and principalities in high places. If you know this, then how are you a good soldier when you have an opportunity to act like a soldier and do something that's going to help somebody else and you choose not to?
Yeah.
How are you a good soldier? You're just wearing a uniform. You're not a good soldier. I mean, anybody can go to the PX and buy some uniforms. You can go to an Army surplus store and buy all the uniforms you want. You can get you an AR-15, go into somebody's acres of land, take a few shots, get with a bunch of other people. That don't make you a soldier. It just means that you're a bunch of people with AR-15s. When you want to be like the gladiator, you got to put in the time of a gladiator. You got to put on that uniform, join the military, learn the precepts and concepts of what it is to be a soldier so you can better apply it with what God is saying a soldier is. Because if you really don't do your studies and understand what are the fundamental core values of a soldier, you'll never be a good soldier. These are the facts. That's why God says study to show yourself approved. I do not mean to come off unhinged or as if I'm a little frustrated, but I love people. I love life. And when I tell you all I love you, I mean it. So to know that you can just be so cold-hearted that you can watch somebody die and do nothing, it hurts. It hurt God. It hurts people that love God for real that will never do those things. So that's why I'm feeling and acting and talking the way I am now. I just wanted to explain that. Let everything you do be in love. This is the last part of that scripture. Love is what keeps everything listed in these scripture portions that I read together in you as a man. Love is what caused you to want to lay your life down the way Jesus did. Love will cause you to run into that burning building, not worrying about what burns you may sustain yourself. Love will cause you to tell the truth and call people out, even though it might not be politically expedient for you. Love will cause you to love and lead by example and not be a hypocrite. Love will cause you to bend down only to the Lord and no man on earth. That's love. Love is what love does. Love is right because Jesus is right. And God says, if you have love, it's because you have him. But remember, love is an action word. So when you have your heart filled with love, it's impossible for you not to produce fruit. It's impossible for you to see a need and not meet it. Even if you got $10 and you're like, well, this is all I got to last me and I got like 2 weeks, but this brother here starving. Let me give you 5 and we'll both be hurting. But at least we gonna eat Mary for 5 minutes. We're going to eat, that's what love does. And then God will do something crazy. God will mess around and send somebody that'll feed both of y'all for the next couple of years because we just don't know what God going to do. God acts off of 2 things, faith and love. And when you exhibit these things without worrying about yourself, let tomorrow take care of itself. But don't worry about today. God will give you everything you need today. And when you have that kind of faith, you can walk on water like Peter did. The difference is you won't sink. So these scriptures of what a man is, to go full circle, masculinity to God is humility and love and morals and integrity and character, where that's the life you live, not just on Sundays when you go before others, so-called believers, but that you live this life every day and it's showed in the way you treat your family, in the way you pour into your kids and your son, in the way you treat your co-workers, in the way you walk and conduct yourself in the house of God, and the way you live a life before God above reproach, without hesitation, and without doggone taken down or taken back by anybody. You're going to tell the truth no matter who it hurt. Because the world today is upside down, where the truth is a lie and the lie is the truth. That's the world we live in today. But God say not so. So although a lot of people say, well, the Bible is being fulfilled and God is allowing all these things to happen, no, I disagree with part of that. Let me explain. The Bible is being fulfilled. But one thing God has never done is take away your free will. The punishment that America is feeling right now is because we've sinned. It has nothing to do with God. Like God wanted this to happen. God said, I put before you life and death, you choose. It's funny how we can understand that as an individual, but can't look at that governmentally.
Oh, forget the United States. The world as a whole is feeling the repercussions of sin and living through flesh, and in wanting to acknowledge our flesh and live a life that is as if there are no consequences, because of that belief of once saved always saved. And so I can live a life however I want, and then when it's time to meet my maker, I can say, hey, look, I prayed the prayer and I said I believed that you died on the cross for my sins, so I should be good to get into heaven and get into the pearly gates, right? And it's all it is about is it's hey, you were so focused on living a life on this earth, right? On this life, in this plane, not knowing that, hey, we are called as Christians that we will have two deaths, right? And so forgetting that it is not about this, it's not about this time right here. It's about what comes next.
And the thing is, we have to understand what God said. God said you will be judged for everything you did while you were in this life.
Yep.
That's what we're being judged for. Mm-hmm. Remember, Jesus said, I'm coming like a thief in the night. I'm coming very quickly. My reward is with me to reward every man and woman according to their work. Mm-hmm. There you go, your resume again.
Yeah.
Your fruit. So we don't have to fear if we got good fruit. We have to be worried if all we got is bad fruit.
Yep.
That's when you worry. And for those that would say, well, now you're saying that it's works that has to do with salvation. No, works has nothing to do with salvation. Do not misinterpret what I'm saying.
Works is dead.
Let me help you to separate this right quick. Salvation is a gift from God based on your faith, according to Ephesians 2:8-9. For we are saved by grace through faith. That's before the semicolon. That's what he's taking up right now in basic Bible doctrine. Secondly, when you get saved, now that you're saved, you can move that aside because you're saved now. Had nothing to do with your works, lest any man should boast. It's a free gift from God. So now that you're saved, it's time to get to work.
Yep.
That's how this works. And I do not understand why we don't teach this way, but that's what God is saying. Work has always had two parts in the Bible. One, it has nothing to do with salvation. But two, once you get saved, it's time to get to work. You're working for God now. You belong to him. He said you are not your own. You are bought at a price. So it's not about you anymore. It's about kingdom building. It's about God. It's about telling the whole world, the Great Commission, Matthew 28:19-20, that you hear a lot about. Go tell everybody else about God. Now that you know him, you're getting to know him in the sanctification process. You go and tell everybody else. That's what we're supposed to do. So work has more than one definition in the Bible. We need to teach both. It'll help the core of the church.
I think what will help people understanding as well is when you commit your life to Christ and then you start living a life full of Christ, you start understanding the work he directs our steps. So his will on your life will then happen, and that work that everyone thinks like, oh, well, does that mean I need to like build a church now or do it? No. Whatever God has for you, whatever he has planned for you, he will put it on your heart and he'll have you do it. And you just have to be obedient.
Listen, there's a lot of missions out there. You can work with a nonprofit organization just helping veterans. That's work. You're working for God. It's that simple. God gave us different passions. Mm-hmm. He gave us different gifts. Yeah. And when you give your life to Christ, you start working in those gifts if you are obedient to his will. And he'll show you, like he just said, where to go, what you want you to do. And it's that simple. This is not rocket science, y'all. I declare serving God is not rocket science. It just takes a made up mind, and it takes you to live a life above reproach. That means you can't give in to the lust of your own emotions and your flesh. That's the difference. That's what separates us from the world, because the world is giving in to their lust, and the same thing we used to do before we gave our life to Christ. I used to give in to the same desires. So it's not that I forgot where I came from. I think about it every day. The doggone devil makes sure of it because he keep doggone trying to remind me how much fun I used to have.
Yeah.
But I tell the devil I'm having more fun now because I work for someone that actually loves me, not someone that hate me and just want me to burn in hell.
Yeah.
That is the difference. I serve someone that laid their lives down for me. that shed blood for me, that saved me when I should have been dead. So I gladly and cheerfully serve the Lord. And I'll tell anybody about who God is. So going back to the topic of masculinity, you have the definition that we've talked about to great lengths with the world and how the world look at it. And as you know, there's a lot of different definitions based on everybody's perspective and, how they see it. But then we gave you what God said a man is supposed to be and what God consider a masculine man. And we use Gladiator to bring out the point, thanks to Q. And that's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yeah. I think it's an amazing movie. But again, guys, just taking a second from focus on Gladiator. Again, I think someone you can look at when you read your word is David, is King David, and to see into understanding, all of those. It's crazy thing for me, right? And what I think sometimes helps people is put everything not put everything. Try to put it in the lens of if David would in the world society now, right? That man would be like crazy, right? You know what I mean? Like it would be like, oh my gosh, that guy is right. But David still sought God. And I think that's the important part here, and why at the end of the day, where you could look at the many sins of David, and not saying I'm better than David, but the many sins of David, and be like, okay, how is this man supposed to be a man that is after God's heart? But he did this, he did this, he did this. But then you read and you start to understand. But in everything he did, he sought God. David was dying, and he said, God, please. God said, I got you. You know what I mean? He was sick. He was dying, and his enemies were the people within him were knocking at his door, ready to say, "Hey, David's about to kick the bucket, and the kingdom is ours." And God swooped in. I say that to use that to say, "Hey, read." I think you've got to really read the beginning to the end of David, and you can helps really understand what a man looks like, a biblical man looks like, to help you understand how we are to live our lives as men.
And I will say this to put the icing on the cake. Listen. A man is not defined by how hard he is and how tough he can show himself to be in public. A real man is a humble man. A real man has no problem with shedding tears. It doesn't take away from your masculinity. It only adds to it. A real man has integrity, morals, and character and love in his heart and treat people with respect and dignity. That's how God created men to be. Yep. So if you're going to represent a real man in the army of the Lord, you're going to have traits like Jesus Christ. Jesus wept. Jesus did so many things, but Jesus had integrity, morals, character, and love, and he honored his Father. So if we're going to honor Jesus the way Jesus honored his Father, we need to have the same attributes and characteristics and traits in our lives, and that's through humility. Yep. And remember, as I shared with you some many months ago, it's not about how loud you speak that determines your rank. You can speak with a very solemn voice, never have to raise, and that skill craft still just as mighty as it been before you ever open your mouth. Yeah. So it's not about banging your chest like King Kong. It's not about yelling like Godzilla. You can speak softly and show love and kindness and still get your point across and still be a man. A man is willing to admit his weaknesses. You do not know everything. It's not wrong for you to say, hey, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. We all make mistakes. So masculinity is being able to admit those mistakes. It's not void of those mistakes or acting like they didn't happen. Like you can never say you're wrong about. Listen, you're going to make plenty of mistakes, especially if you have a family. There is no blueprint other than the Bible as to what God expects of you. But God leave the rest up to you. Yep. So how Q raised his family might be different than the way I raised mine. Both of them are right in the eyes of God as long as we hit those check marks God gave us to hit. Mm-hmm. So I just want you to share this with you so you can understand you need help. Get the help you need. Oh, yeah. Get the help you need. It don't make you less than a man. It make you more of a man so you can live long and prosper. Oh, Jesus. All right, y'all. Listen, thanks for joining us on this surprise episode. It's been a blast. These conversations are always fun. I think, talking about, cultural issues, and if you will, like this, and being able to apply that biblical knowledge against the world, because we get so much of the world that we don't get enough what the Bible says or what God says about it,
right? We get stuck in this. Well, the world's. I heard this video and it said I could do this as a Christian, and in reality, it's like, what does the Bible say about it? Forget what this YouTuber. Forget what James said. Don't forget per se, but go look it up yourselves. Go look it up in the Word. Go look up the verses that he gave, the verses that we gave. Go look them up for yourself and read and ask God for discernment and understanding, right? Because I think that's what the important part is here. Is it's in the Word. We just gotta go out there and find it and seek it and be like, oh, okay, this is what the Lord was saying. This is what it is to be a man. This is what it is to do these things. But that being said, hey y'all, thanks for joining us. It's been a great episode. I love it. Like I said, baby's done here soon. Book's coming out here soon. I don't know if you got any updates on your book, but
not yet. The next thing they're gonna send me it'll be an email saying the book is live. I've done my part. I'm just waiting for the 2. It was only 2 corrections needed. I was surprised.
Nice.
Weird.
A comma and a period.
14 chapters, and I had to turn in like 3 pages on the first book, 5 pages full of errors on the second book.
Oh, wow.
Here's a book of 43, and there's only 2 errors.
Oh, nice.
On the back of the book, it had the 14 chapters when it should say 43.
Oh, gotcha.
And then they didn't number the chapters on the table of contents. That's it. That's the only errors. Yeah. I'm like, wow. I'm like, oh my Lord, I don't get it.
Well, thank you, Lord, because look, 43 chapters is a lot. You have to go through to try to correct those things. But I think that's awesome. So, hey, be on the lookout for that, y'all. I'll when he lets me know, when you let me know when it goes live, and I'll put it out there on social media. Let everybody know where they can get the book. Put the Amazon link on there, whatever the case might be. So,
definitely.
Other than that, y'all, we appreciate y'all joining us. It has been a blast. I always love doing this, but that's all we got. We're out now.